What's up, everybody? Welcome to the DropTuned podcast. This is a podcast all about music and the music industry with your two wonderful hosts. My name is Scott Kelly.
And I'm Jay Carbonera.
Oh, Jake. Here we
Oh,
are.
Scott. Here we are.
Here we are.
We're here.
We are here. We have made it. This is our second attempt at recording this. We've had some technical difficulties, but we figured it out. We got there, and that's all that counts.
It's all that matters, man. We got it.
Yeah. In the past attempt, Jake regaled us of a story about how we tried to do this much earlier in the day. We didn't get there. That's totally fine. But Jake had a late night last night.
I did. It was late. Got back home at like 4 a.m. I think.
Oh dang.
Oh my days.
Oh my days.
Oh my days.
Exactly. Nice, cool. Well, we won't have too much little banter here at the start. You know, this being the first episode we have together.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, why don't you? You know, as I mentioned a second ago, this is all about music and the music industry in some way, shape, or form. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your relationship to music?
Sure. Yeah. Been a musician my whole life, I would say. Played guitar since I was like 10, I think. So I'm 25 now, so that's 15 years. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. And I love divorced dad rock. Yeah. Man, I've been playing in like pop punk bands since like high school, but joined our metalcore band called Still World. We all started in like 2018, so it's been like 5 years. So pretty crazy,
Yes.
half a decade already.
Oh, don't say that out loud. That's scary. But yeah, no, and it's been what a 5 years it has been.
Yeah, no, it's been a good 5 years, man.
What a 5 years it has been. Awesome. Yeah, but we'll be coming back to that here in just a moment. I guess I'll give you a little introduction to myself as well for those of you who don't know me. My name is Scott Kelly. I am the vocalist in said band. Jake didn't mention, but he primarily plays guitar, but he also does some vocals. He's got the really good low.
Oh, I get low.
He gets low. He's got the low screams. And yeah, we're in a metal band together. But outside of that, you know, I too have been playing music for a long time in some way, shape, or form. I've been in bands for like 11 or 12 years now, I guess. And outside of that, I am also a tour manager, I suppose. Just got back from a three week North American tour. It was all over the US and Canada. That was a lot of fun. That's with a folk band from Ireland called the Merry Wallopers. And yeah, be doing more with them next year. So that'll come up, I'm sure, from time to time too. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that tour.
Yeah, we haven't really had a chance to chat in depth since I got home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so,
you've been a busy boy.
I've been a busy boy. And found out today I might be going to Australia next year, so that's exciting.
Ooh, that's gonna be sick.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Be careful of the kangaroos.
I was talking to Phoenix earlier. Phoenix is my wife, for those who don't know. But I was telling her, like, oh, hey, yeah, I just got the text about maybe going to Australia. And right away, she's like, I don't want to come. They have too many spiders. Just funny that she was thinking spiders and you were thinking kangaroos.
Yeah. No, yeah. Kangaroos, man, they're tall. They're big.
Mm-hmm.
They look huge.
Yep. But yeah, that is me and my connection to music. But yeah, I guess just to kind of like introduce the podcast a little bit more. Um, first and foremost, I think this is just for selfishly, I think this creates a really good opportunity just for Jake and myself to get together and nerd out about things that are happening within the music industry, whether that's just exciting things we're seeing, whether it's we want to talk about like marketing and how we're moving our band forward. Um, we just think, and we that's stuff that Jake, you and I do pretty frequently anyway. But I think documenting these conversations, one, it forces us to have these conversations more regularly. But
Mm-hmm.
two, I think you never know who could benefit from listening in on some of this stuff. So that's the idea. Hopefully we have something to chat about that helps someone else in whatever they're doing. Um, so yeah, like this is a podcast which I think it's fair to say it's intended for, at least right now, first and foremost, like other musicians, other artists who are just curious as to what's happening in the industry and who might be looking for some insight on what they can maybe do better. That being said, we don't know what we have a lot to learn too, and so this is more so, I guess, like sharing ideas. None of that is to say that we're experts. We're far from it, but
Mm-hmm.
um, hopefully we can sort of grow like a cool community out of this, and um, yeah, just get people talking and sharing ideas around what's worked for one artist, what hasn't worked for others, and so on and so forth. But anything else you'd like to add to that synopsis, my friend?
No, that was really well said. Yeah, no. We obviously haven't quote unquote made it in the music industry with our band, but we've definitely had some success and some tools and knowledge that we can share with everyone out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it can hopefully help some people out on their journey with their music. And yeah, very excited to kick this off.
Absolutely. Cool. So maybe to just sort of kick things off, Jake, do you want to talk a little bit about what you and I have been chatting about and like what Still World is working on as of late, and what ideas we've been throwing around and where we see things going over the next few months?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So really it all starts with a new song that we have
Mm-hmm.
currently in the works. So it's basically done. Dan, our guitarist and clean vocalist, he does amazing audio work. And so he really crushed it with this song that we all collaborated on. So it's going to be a new single. Don't know when it's going to come out, but we'll see. We'll see. And
At this
yeah,
rate,
so we've been throwing,
probably spring. Well, no, maybe not. Maybe earlier. Maybe like mid to late winter at this stage.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Got to get some things in the pipeline for that. If we want to do a music video, that's something we've
Mm-hmm.
been throwing around. Or like if that's not a viable option, then we'll probably end up doing like some sort of visualizer
Mm-hmm.
and in like content around it on like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. But yeah, so that's really like the main thing going on right now with the band, and as well
Mm-hmm.
as like writing another single, another song. And get that prepped and ready for like the next release for that.
Totally.
But as of right now, just have that first single could be tossing out at the beginning probably of next year. And yeah, around that, we're just going to create content around the song. It could be anything from like, well, we had this conversation a month ago, I believe,
Mm,
what kind
probably.
of things we want to do on social media. So I think one of those things was like um, having a version of the song without drums and being like, "Hey, drummers, toss some drums on this song. Try to guess what it is, um,
Yeah.
and like stitch it as like a TikTok, and then
Mm-hmm.
we would also react to that, um, like stitch our own like reaction to their like drum parts to the
Mm-hmm.
song. So it and that's inspired from Drumeo on YouTube,
Yeah.
where they have professional musicians come in and not hear, don't know about the song they're going to play drums to, so they hear like a drumless track and and put their own flavor and spin on it. And sometimes it's like on par. Usually, it's different, but it still like works because they're just, obviously professional musicians and just good at their craft. So it just makes for a lot of like really cool entertainment content.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, no, I'm excited to jump into some of that. Like I always, well, as you know, Jake, but like I always love when we get to that phase where we get to nerd out about like the different ways that we want to at least like try to move things forward with like marketing and content ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're slowly but surely getting better on like our execution and our consistency.
Mm-hmm.
But at the very least, like tossing around ideas is always exciting. So yeah, I'm excited for that. It's almost like it's like a content farm of sorts. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah, we're farmers.
you so it's like you can use songs you already have, make like a quick, like super quick video where you're inviting collaborators. You know, hopefully all things go into plan, people join in, and now lo and behold, like you have someone else who's essentially sharing your music. They're getting a piece of content out of it, and then you can create like a second piece of content out of it via that reaction that you're talking about, and that you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of, you know, it's like a loop in a sense. Whereas as long as people are uh, sharing their takes and their perspective on your song, then you can just keep pumping out content, which is good for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And like being a musician, an artist nowadays, like it's very important to get yourself online because
Mm-hmm.
you never know if like that one video just pops you off and like skyrockets your streams on, Spotify, Apple Music, and like, gets a lot of eyes on you, and buying your merch is just like, it's so important. It's such an easy thing to do. Um, well, easier said than done, but like sometimes it's kind of difficult to like get into that to start off with. But over time, you like develop that kind of eye for content and figure out what
Yeah,
works best for you and not. Um,
yeah, and I think largely it's
yeah.
just like the habit too. I recently heard a story um, that just resonated a lot. So for like just a little bit of like background context, Jake said earlier that our band has been around now for 5 years, and I sort of alluded to like admittedly when it comes to some things like whether it's like how frequently we're putting out new music, but also like how frequently we put out content. Like we've kind of like gone through waves and states where sometimes we're doing really really well for like a couple months and then it just kind of falls off and life happens. But I think we're starting to find our balance and find a
Mm-hmm.
degree of sustainable consistency, which is really great. But I think as a result of like a lot of that and also just experimenting with our music and like finding our own sound and stuff like over time, um, we just crossed the threshold of 1,000 Instagram followers, which is, in the grand scheme of things, still a very small number, but from our perspective, something worth celebrating. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's just kind of like a testament to how we've been improving over time versus what we were doing in the early days. Um, and yeah, it's just gonna grow from here. But the reason that I mentioned that is to sort of tie into your point. Was like you never know when something could kick off or
Mm-hmm.
when something could happen. So the story that I heard recently is: are you familiar with the comedian? He's his career basically is attributed to his TikTok content.
Oh,
Matt
Matt
Reeves,
Rife.
Matt Rife, is that his name?
Yeah, Matt Rife.
Matt
Yeah,
Rife.
love
Yeah, yeah,
Matt.
cool. Apologies, but yeah, so super super funny dude. But I guess he recently has done some interviews and he's kind of like explained his success story in the run up to I think his first Netflix special coming out next week. But he explains like I think he got his start on like Wild and Out with Nick
Mm-hmm.
Cannon, and then he got into stand up and he was kind of struggling to make a name for himself, and he um got in, he went up to like the Just for Laughs festival in Canada, which is like a big like stand up comedy festival, and he was doing it for free. He didn't technically get invited, but another one of his like friends or partners he was performing with took him along, and he tells a story about how, the night before the show, he was having the conversation with himself about how he thought he just wanted to give up on comedy. Um, because he'd just been doing it for so long and nothing happened and he hadn't made it, and he didn't think it was funny, and he didn't think anyone else thought he was funny, and he had been putting up like videos on TikTok like fairly consistently, and nothing was really just like kicking off. But then the night before the show, he is talking to one of his friends at the festival, and he's like, "Oh, I don't even know if I want to post this. I'm thinking about going and finding like a more normal job." And his friend is like, "Just post the video, just post the video. Like, you've already edited it or whatever." And he posts the video, and then like lo and behold, from that day on, he was like he blew up and his career was made. Like, got hundreds of thousands, perhaps even millions of views. I don't know what the number was, but that story has since told itself. Like, he's probably the most successful comedian on social media at the very least, like these days, I would say.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that story too. I was watching that the other day, and like, even just to add more color to that, he did an interview. He was saying that he made like 40K before, like
oh
40K a
yeah.
year around there, and then he after he blew up, he started finding a lot of success and all that, and
Mhm.
he makes millions now.
Yeah.
It's just wild how like that switch just goes off, you
Mhm.
know. But yeah, I mean, hey, he's easy on the eyes. He's a handsome man, so he's very popular with the female crowd. Is he has a full U.S. I think it's just a U.S. tour, but it's like sold out, I think,
I think it's a world tour.
or is World? Oh yeah, it is World.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
I think he has a world tour, which is sold out. So,
yeah.
yep, like super inspiring success story,
Hmm.
crazy
Absolutely.
tale, but yeah, it just goes to show like you never know like what's around the corner, and yeah, I think it's just important to remind ourselves of that, but also just to kind of like
Hmm.
further share that message to anyone who might not yet know about it. Because yeah, you're like if you're an artist, and if you've ever played a show or you've put out a piece of music, and even if you've just had a few people tell you that they genuinely enjoyed your music, and they're not close friends, they're not family, like they have no reason to tell you that otherwise, then there's an audience out there. Like, no one is an island in that sense, right? And if you have found a handful of people that like your music in real life, there are going to be other people out there that like your music. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get your music in front of them, and from that point on, like, how do you nurture that relationship and how do you grow your career? But yeah, I think it's just for all of us as independent musicians, it's just kind of necessary to remind ourselves of that, right? Like,
Hmm.
because when you're doing something for a long time and you haven't yet seen that payoff, it's sometimes it's tiring, and I think that's totally normal and it's expected, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's what are you going to do to re-energize yourself and get back into the swing of things? And I think that's a great story to assist with that process.
Absolutely. Yeah. The best way to get out there really is just organic content on social
Mm-hmm.
media, TikTok specifically. Instagram is kind of iffy with their organic. They're very picky with their content that like blows up.
Mm-hmm.
TikTok is more lenient with that. Like, for instance, Instagram prefers you to like use their captions on the app and post from the app. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, you can make your captions in like another program, bring it in, you still get like, you can still blow up from that. Like, they're not as picky and they pay better. So
Yeah, yeah, and
yeah.
interestingly, something I think that's maybe worth mentioning too. We don't have to say the company name out loud for just for like privacy reasons and stuff, but Jake works for a marketing agency,
Mm,
um, specifically when it comes to like social media advertising and stuff, right? So
mm-hmm.
yeah, so I think you're gonna have some really interesting insights for a lot of people when it comes to those discussions. So woo,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm
very
really
cool.
just on the paid side. We don't do any organic content, but
Oh, but
yeah.
I mean, still super valuable.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
think like I think my perspective on all that stuff. I I think you're off the same mind, but I don't know for sure. But
Mm,
I think first and foremost, it's important to kind of get as close to mastering your organic content strategy as possible.
mm-hmm.
But then once you kind of find that sweet spot, moving that into paid just to kind of
Mm,
expedite the rate at which you can grow. And I think a lot of artists kind of take paid advertising for granted, especially in the earlier days.
mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, something we can talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we found a lot of success with paid and organic. Um, on the topic of organic, we've had some videos like do very well on TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always just unexpected. Like our most
It's the most
popular
random
one, like
shit.
the yeah, like um, it was every metalcore guitarist warm ups, and it was
Yeah.
just it took me 10 minutes to make it, and I just started like I thought it was funny, and I'm like I don't know if this will like hit with like people,
Mm-hmm.
but it turns out it hit fucking like 300K views on it and like
Yeah.
thousands of likes and hundreds of comments. And even the band We Came as Romans commented on it. I'm
Yeah.
like, sick. Hell yeah.
For real.
But even,
Hey,
even like
do
part
more of
two did
those.
good.
Do more of those.
Oh, I can.
Do more.
I will.
Yeah.
I have more
We
ideas. I could pump out like three more.
we need those views. We need those views.
We do. Yeah. You know what? I'll do that this week.
Sick.
I got it. Yeah.
Sick.
Um, but yeah, we posted it, didn't think anything of it. I think it took like a couple days for it to really hit. And like, I was actually looking at the insights the other day on that because I was curious.
Mm.
And like the second day, we hit like 43K views.
Yeah. Wow.
And then it just kind of dipped down. Then it did another dip up to
Mm.
like 30K, I think, a
Yeah.
couple
And
days
every so
later.
often I get notifications that like so and
Yeah.
so like your video. I'm like, oh, it's just kind of TikTok's sort of pushing it again out of the blue, you
Yeah.
know?
Hey, keep pushing it. TikTok. That's cool. That's
Yeah,
fine.
it's so random. So random. But yeah, we don't necessarily have to get into like a dedicated chat about all that stuff right now. Like I think this first episode we didn't really have like a specific topic. We just more so wanted to introduce ourselves. Um, so anyone who's listening can kind of feel as if they understand where we're coming from and what's driving our points of view. Um, but yeah, there was one thing I just wanted was curious about, Jake, to get your take on. Um,
Absolutely.
we can do that now, or is there anything else comes to your mind before we divert elsewhere when it comes to like our experience and what what we're working on and stuff like that?
No. Yeah. We jump into my reaction.
Okay, maybe
Yeah.
you've heard this news, maybe you haven't,
Okay.
but the world's most morally justified company, Spotify.
I think I know what you're
That's
talking about. Yeah.
that's a joke, by the way.
I think I know what you're gonna talk about. Yeah,
Don't get me
but
wrong,
I'm not.
love Spotify, although I use Apple Music. So Spotify has
I use
announced
Spotify.
Spotify has announced that in 2024, artists will have to have each song have a minimum of 1,000 views before views 1,000 streams before that song starts to earn revenue for the artist, songwriters, etc. So independent artists who are just getting their start will not be able to make money off of Spotify right away. Or even musicians at our point, like we've been doing this a long time and we we make some money off Spotify. It's literal probably like a few dollars. It's probably like a few dollars every so often. That's not like a lot, but even in our position, like, if we put up a new song today and we didn't go hard on marketing it, it would be a little bit of time before we could start to earn money on that song. So
Mhm.
yeah, have you heard that news before? What are your
I
thoughts?
I have I have very conflicting thoughts. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
So we could chat through it. Okay. So
What?
on one end,
Yeah, go for it.
sorry, go ahead. Okay. Yeah, so on one end, like on one side, like if we have a song that's under 1,000 streams, we're not going to get paid shit. So does it really matter? You know? Because like, you know what I mean? Like we're probably going to get like a dollar or two. You know
Right.
what I mean?
But yeah, and that's fair. It's not as if like the
Yeah.
money, like I said, the money. It's not like
And
the money we've made on Spotify is game changing. But
yeah,
yeah, but continue. I'll chime in when you're
yeah,
done.
yeah. So with that being said, like when it gets to over 1,000 streams, then you can start generating money, and it seems like something's going good with that song and your marketing and all that. So at that point, it's like I think that I'm not too familiar with this article or this news, but I think correct me if I'm wrong. They're doing this in an effort to like pay bigger artists more.
Hmm.
Is that what it is? Okay,
Yeah,
like
Deezer's
that
doing the
makes
same thing actually.
Deezer.
Hmm.
Who uses Deezer?
A lot of people in
Like,
Europe.
oh, okay, gotcha. I'm just ignorant. Okay, this American boy, you know, Indiana man. Okay, no, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. Like if bigger artists who are making a living off of it and they rely on stream like money from streams and they get a bigger check, that's good. You know what I mean? For independent artists who are just starting out, who are getting less than 1,000 streams, like if I don't even know, man. It's see, you know, I'm very conflicted because it's like I want to support independent artists, but also like touring musicians who make a living off of it. It would make sense for them to get a bigger cut. You see what I mean?
But okay, so here's my take.
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying.
yeah,
My perspective is that even with the way things are operating now, it's the amount of money that you earn on Spotify is directly proportional to how many people listen. So if these
mm-hmm.
touring musicians or full time artists are putting in that work, they're already being compensated in a way that is equitable to the amount of work that they're putting in, right? And so I don't think that they're at a loss. Like fucking like people like I don't know who's huge these days. Dua Lipa, as
Mm-hmm.
love Dua Lipa, but like she's not struggling to make a fucking buck just because there's independent artists also making money on
Yeah,
Spotify. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And
Not to cut you off. I was more thinking of like metal bands,
oh, so
like
well, okay, like
take.
even like Metallica. You know what I mean? Like Metallica
Sorry,
is
I
not
can't hear you.
like, huh?
They're cutting out.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
cool. Um, yeah, I mean, even in that war, like Metallica's not struggling to make money because we have a Spotify account.
Oh,
You
I'm
know,
thinking like smaller, smaller
but
bands,
but
like
but
invent animate. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, but still, like we are not taking away
Yeah.
from Event Animate's money. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
never a circumstance that has existed because if people want to listen to Event Animate instead of us, they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna go and do that anyway, and then the money goes to Invent
Right.
Animate. You know what I mean? And
That
and
makes sense.
in the sense as well that like yeah, like what does it really matter if it's just like pennies or a few dollars and the money that you'd make until you hit 1,000 streams. Yeah, it's not like I don't think it's the amount of money between like 0 and 1,000 streams on a song. It's probably not even money you can realistically do anything significant with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But I think it's just the principle of it more than anything. And I
I know what you
think
mean. Yeah.
there's broader consequences in some regards. Like, first and foremost, I do believe like when you put art out into the world and people consume it, whether it's 10 people or whether it's a million people, you deserve to be compensated in some way, shape, or form. And
Hmm.
the amount of money that Spotify pays today, I don't think is a fair or equitable amount per stream. And I don't think that it is reflective of like the real value of what art brings to individual people and the experience that they have with it. But
Hmm.
I'm not here to argue like the rate, like the amount of money is the amount of money, like whatever. But the fact that they're now saying that like it's essentially like making a statement to say like, oh, if you can't prove that you're popular, your art's not worth anything. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
that makes
And so
sense.
I think just like morally, conceptually, that drives me fucking crazy. Um, because I understand like they own the marketplace, and so yeah, like rules of capitalism dictate that like what they have to say is totally valid, but like ultimately, like who is Spotify to decide like whether music is good or bad, and if someone should be paid as a result of that, right?
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, we all have to play the game, and I know that sounds like really naive. But I'm not talking about like the actual logistics of the music industry right now. This is just like the principle of it, I suppose, more than anything.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that's just it's pretty messed up.
Hmm.
Um, not a fan.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Yeah, now that we chatted through it, like, yeah, the principle of it is messed up. And I mean, even besides this, this article and new update, like the bigger issue here is Spotify. Hey, pay artists more in general.
Mm, totally.
Like artists have been saying this for years.
Mm,
Like it's just bogus.
yeah, yeah, and this, I'm sure the audience, maybe the audience who's listening to this podcast is going to be a bit more well informed than the general public, given that we're talking about musicians and other independent artists. But my most recent understanding on how Spotify's payment model operates within the back end of their organization, and to be fair, it's been a couple years since I heard this explained, so it is possible that things have since changed. But the least of my knowledge, the way in which Spotify determines how much money people make from streaming is essentially that they look at the percentage of overall streams that you as an artist contribute to their platform, and there's a percentage of the overall revenue that they set aside for royalties that gets paid out depending on the percentage that you contributed to the platform. So let's just say hypothetically, Spotify makes X amount of money last year, and then coming into this year, next year, whatever, they say, cool, we made this much money. We're going to set aside, I don't know, this is a totally random percentage, it's not based on any fact, but we're going to set aside 60% of revenues for royalty payments. And, the rest is going to go to our investors and company expenses and blah, 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 whatever. Um, so now their overall revenue, they have created a pool based out of that revenue to pay people out of. And now that you have that pool that's been set aside, if if our band, for example, equated to um I don't know, like 0.5% of all of the music streamed on Spotify in that year, then we only get like we only get 0.5% of the overall revenue that's in that pool of money, which sounds like it's directly proportional,
Hmm.
right? Based on like the value of contributed listenership. But when you think about how many artists there are out there in the world, how many people have their music on Spotify, and also how many people use Spotify, um,
Hmm.
the it's such a one sided model in a sense that like the biggest pop artists in the world are always going to bring in the most, and it's almost like their success is taking away from the ability for Spotify to pay smaller independent artists out. But of course, it's not the artist's fault; it's Spotify's fault for like developing their
Hmm.
platform and creating structuring their system in that way. Um, so I think just to if we assume my knowledge is up to date, again, might not be, but if my knowledge is up to date, they've now introduced this like secondary tier where it's like, hey, not only are you only entitled to like the teeniest tiniest piece of that pie to begin with, now you have to have X number of streams before we even like let you in the door to that teeny tiny piece, you know. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Yeah, that's. I mean, that seems about right. That's like the model. They probably still have that model, and they, like you said, they have that like secondary tier that if like you get X amount of streams, then you
mhm,
get this, start to get paid.
yeah,
And that's, yeah, no, if Spotify were to like support smaller artists, like independent artists, I'm sure it would make the world of difference on the Spotify platform, and like,
mhm,
more people would support Spotify. But it's just a corporate fucking move. They
yeah,
don't have enough. They don't have enough money allocated to their pool of royalties to even like fairly pay any artist, according to
mhm,
streams. I mean, who knows? Maybe they have like um, contracts with bigger artists with their labels, like they get
oh
more
yeah,
money
they
than
do for
like
sure.
us. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
totally. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's all sorts of fucking deals and contracts signed to incentivize people to
Yeah.
push their music on one platform over another. But
Hmm.
I think it's just like the model is broken in a sense. And like I sort of alluded to a few minutes ago, like it's not just Spotify. So like Deezer right now, for those who are in the US, maybe you're not familiar with Deezer outside of seeing it on DistroKid when you go to upload your music. Deezer is a French company music streaming service, just like Spotify, just like Apple Music. But they just introduced a similar move where before they'll start to pay you, again, you have to have a minimum of 1,000 streams on a song. But they have also said that 1,000 streams has to come from at least 500 different people. So you can't just have like a super fan who listens to your song 1,000 times and then you start to make money. It's basically like you have to have at least 500 people who, with math, have to have listened to your song at least twice.
So it's based off like unique streams, like
Unique
unique
listenership
users.
to
Yeah.
to a degree. Like
Uh,
once you cross the 500 person threshold, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, um, and yeah. So okay, maybe we're having a conversation here about just how like fucked up the streaming industry is. but but something else I noticed as I was reading that article about Deezer is something else that they're doing now is they're also cracking down on, how people like put up albums and playlists of stuff and it's just like white noise, or it could be like really
mm,
chill, mellow music, and it's just like a really relaxing song, and it's like 35 minutes long or something.
hmm.
So they're also cracking down on a lot of that stuff now, and like Deezer's pulling a lot of it out of their platform and stopping people from uploading stuff like that,
Hmm.
because they're claiming that it's like streaming fraud and that this is content that isn't worthy of them paying out. But at the
Hmm.
same time, what they're also starting to introduce now is AI generated music that fills that gap. So they're basically going to say, like,
Weird.
you as an individual can't go and create like nature sounds and put them on Deezer. But you know what? We can go use an AI to create the same type of soundtrack and we can put it up and make money off of it. because
I
it
heard
brings
something about
people to
Spotify
the
doing that
platform.
too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I heard something. I saw it on TikTok because I know there's, I mean, side hustle culture. Like there's just a lot of like
Hmm.
things that people find to make money and solely just for the purpose of making money. Nothing wrong with that, but in this context, I mean, there's people that are making like AI generated tracks
Hmm.
um, and throw it on Spotify, for money to make money
Yeah.
off of. There's people who are making 30-second songs,
Hmm.
like things to like uh, I forgot what. I think it's I think it's just like you said, like something to listen to when you're falling asleep. It's just like a
Hmm.
long playlist. Um,
It's like a 30-second
just to like
track that just like repeats and each. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
because then it would just be more. I think at 30 seconds, that's where like you get paid. I think I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, but like
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. I saw. I can't. I have to find that because I want to send it to you. Maybe we could talk about it the next podcast.
Yeah, I'd be
Just so I
interested to
get
know
more
more.
info on it. Yeah,
Yeah, and
but
stuff like that is like it's interesting because on one hand, like I understand that no, I don't have to agree with it, but I understand that
yeah,
Spotify is a business and they they quite literally, now that they're a publicly traded company, they only exist to make money,
hmm
right? Like that's the reason for existing right now. Um, and I understand disincentivizing that type of behavior when you're a for-profit business because that is sort of like a creative model, if we want to take that approach, that is
hmm
costing Spotify more money, or Deezer or whoever, that's costing them more money than they would otherwise have to pay. But at the same time, again, like who's to say like what should be music and what shouldn't be
hmm
music? Like, yeah, there's always gonna be people who try to play a fucking game and just want to like earn a quick dollar, and I don't know. But you know what? Like when it comes to taking the side of like a massive corporation or someone who's just trying to like make some extra money on the side by
hmm
uploading 30-second white noise clips, like I'm always gonna side with the person who's just like taking their shot, you know?
yeah, yeah. And I was gonna say like what if like that person's super passionate about making that white
Yeah,
noise
exactly.
content?
You
You know what I
never
mean?
know.
And like Spotify is like, oh no, this is you can't do this. Like it's not
Mm,
fair. And they're like, what the hell? This is what I want to do. I'm passionate about it. Like let me do my thing. Let me get paid.
mm, yeah,
You know.
totally.
So I'm sure it's hard to tell like who's doing it as like just a quick buck and who's like passionate about doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know, look,
Yeah.
there's all sorts
I
of.
mean, either way, it's
It should be
sorry. Go ahead.
fine. Like,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it does. It shouldn't even really matter. You know, at the end of the day, like, yes. Now, with that being said, there is a discussion, and I'm sure we'll have it on this podcast at some point in time about like
Mm-hmm.
specifically AI generated music and
Mm-hmm.
the potential for that to take away from independent musicians and people who do this like for love of the craft and people who rely on this as their legitimate income, like via making music and stuff like that. And so there's definitely like a moral dilemma there. But when it comes to the perspective of like, oh, Spotify has to figure out like what's AI and like what's a real person, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe they do have a role to play in helping to protect artists' careers in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
But their primary motivation like will always be how to save or make as much money as possible. Um,
Right.
and so things will always be like a little bit disingenuous coming from that side. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's just I guess it's healthy to just maintain some skepticism.
Absolutely. Question everything.
Yeah, maintain some skepticism.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we should talk about AI next episode. I think that'll
mm,
be interesting.
yeah, very topical discussion. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Um, very cool. Very cool. Anything else you've seen crop up in the music world as of late you found interesting? You'd like to share with the people?
Mm, man, I mean, that's what we just talked about was like the biggest hot topic in music right now,
Mm-hmm.
regarding Spotify. Um, no, really, nothing else I could think of. I mean, you got anything?
Nope. That's the biggest news I could find before we hopped on this call. So we're at 45 minutes anyway. I think this is our first
Yeah,
episode. We can call it for today. That sounds good to you.
yeah,
Um,
it's good with
but,
me.
but yeah, no, this has been fun. Maybe next time we'll do it in the evening. I'll have a beer cracked open. We'll get nice and loose.
Ooh, ooh, loosey goosey. Yeah, let's get it.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
that sounds good.
Very cool. Well, Jake, my friend, pleasure as always to chat with you. Glad that we get to do this together. Um, don't know just yet how frequent this will be. Could be weekly, could
Yeah,
be every other week, could be once a month. We'll see. We'll figure that out, and you'll get those
hmm,
notifications in your podcast feed. But thank you, everyone,
absolutely.
for listening to the DropTuned podcast. We really appreciate it, and we hope that you'll catch the next one. Peace.
Peace.